system. So we've got a 52 volt battery, 52 volt motor in the back there, and this is the base of what we're going to be chatting about today, all the specs and fun things. If you guys just want to see what the ride test feels like, how it handles in some different environments around here, you can head on out to the ride test, which is a little bit later in the video. But for those of you who are interested in the specs and kind of what those mean and how does that translate into real rideability, then this is the section for you. So first thing we're talking about is the motor. So the motor we have here is our 750 watt rear hub motor. Now it is 750 watts nominal watts, and that is what's legally required for it to be class 2, class 3. But it does peak at a little bit over 1,000 watts, which is pretty nice. Some of them only go up to like 850, 900, something like that. So not the highest peaking wattage motor that we've had, but it does peak pretty high. And even though this is sort of that compact, almost sort of like a compact cargo look to it, it is a little bit sportier than you would think. The throttle takes off. It's got a little bit of a higher ramp up in the power curve. Not super loud, very on par with a lot of the motors that we've tested in the past, so nothing crazy to report there. All in all, I like it. Hill climbing wise, we didn't really take it on that many hills, so based on some of the stuff that we did, it would probably struggle to get up the impossible hill climb that we normally do, which we didn't do. And the only reason I know that is because I've already done the ride test and I didn't do it. I went a different direction. So on this one, probably not going to be an amazing climber, but some of the inclines and declines that we went up, which I guess turns those into inclines, handled itself pretty well. It did slow down a little bit, but all in all, this thing, just handled itself really well. So to power all that, we've got this 52 volt battery up here, and I'm going to get the key off because I always forget to do that before we start recording. Watch me do this one-handed with my gross dirty fingernails. Look at that. Champion. Okay, so to get the battery out, we're going to insert the key here, turn it to unlock it, and then once it's in the locked position, you just pull the battery out. This is a big one. It is 52 volt, 15 amp hours, so we got 780 watt hours here. Reasonably spec'd for this sort of bike and what most people would use it for. We've got a quick read up here at the top, which I can't hold and then press for you. So just imagine it lights up some pretty colors. And then our charging port is on this side, which you can charge it on this side of the bike here. So go ahead and pop it back in. It just seats itself real nice, and then we go ahead and lock it, pull the key back out, and we didn't get any rattle or anything like that in here while we've been riding it. So the nice thing is, if you forget how many volts it is, you can remind yourself it's 52 volts. Put the key back in my pocket for later. Now when it comes to the charging port, got a decent little cap over here on this side. We've got our hole through the frame right here. Now the only thing that's the downside of this, because otherwise it's pretty accessible. It'd be more accessible maybe if it was at the top of the down tube here, but down here, so if you plug it in and then for some reason you forget it's plugged in and you go to try to remove the battery, you see there could be some issues with the charging port getting stuck in here and kind of ripping that out. Don't want to do that, so always make sure that it's not plugged in before you remove the battery. Now the nice thing is it does provide you the convenience of being able to charge it on the bike, so you might not really ever take the battery out, except for a few circumstances here or there. But really for the price point, getting 780 watt hours, not too shabby. And there's Samsung cells in here, so nice name brand cells, which is what we like to see, which is cool. They didn't skimp and just try to save some money with some no-name cells somewhere. And then that is, so we talked about the motor, we talked about the battery, and the next thing we should chat about is the cockpit. So up here we've got these ergonomic grips. They're fine, a little too sturdy here. I don't know if I like this grip pattern, but I'm kind of a grip guy. I like to get real specific and nitty. I mean, some people might grab one of these and be like, oh, I love it. The bonus is it has two locking points. We got a locking point at the end and right here, so these things don't move at all. I mean, that's just my wrist going around. That's not moving at all, so that's nice. We also do have end caps here, so if you want to pop these out and put in some end cap mirrors, you can do that. If you have this kind of load now with cargo, and let's say your balance is not quite 100% there, having mirrors, just kind of being able to be right here and just kind of glance a little bit to the side to be able to see what's behind you, is pretty nice. So the fact that we have the capabilities to put pretty much any universal mirrors in there Although right now, actually, as I'm recording this, I think they're giving away free mirrors. Don't quote me on that, but if you're watching this kind of quickly after the release, you might want to check. I think they're doing a free phone holder and a free mirrors. Something else and a lock, I think, if I remember that correctly. So you might not have to pay for mirrors. You might just get some mirrors. But if you missed the sale, what have you, you can put in pretty much any universal mirror here, which is pretty nice. Throttle here, this is our typical thumb throttle. Used to seeing it pretty much on most bikes these days. No real complaints, handled well, nice little springiness to it. And then here, this is actually the button for the light. So at first I thought it was the horn. I was pressing it and I'm like, oh, the horn's broken. But then I realized I was turning the lights on and off. And the lights are mounted up underneath here. Now it's kind of an interesting light. I haven't seen one like this. I mean, it's got a little bit of a heat sink to it, and it's got a little caution hot sticker on there. So this thing must be pretty bright. Haven't ridden it at night yet, but I might have to do that. Maybe I'll leave a comment in here somewhere saying how bright it was when I was riding at night. And if I'm not lazy, maybe I'll take the camera, get a little clip. I don't know if this is just a note to me or a note to you, but yeah. We'll see if we can knock that out. And then just right underneath here, over here, we do have these plastic fenders. Now, I'm a bigger fan of plastic fenders just because, you know, down here in Houston, it's very humid, so we get, you know, if you get a ding or something on there, rust is something that might happen. But these ones are a little bit flimsy, so that's kind of a con, but also they're super light, so kind of a pro. Probably is a wash. You still get some really good coverage here. I've been riding around in the dirt, and there's not even, can't even see anything on this frame as far as dirt or grime or anything like that. So they're doing a good job. Now, I haven't seen these particular ones before, but I think I'm a fan. I think I like them. And then let's get back to the cockpit before I get carried away just moving over somewhere else. So we can go ahead and turn it on using the power button here. Trying to see if you can see that. See if I can move this into the shade. See if that doesn't help us a little bit. It's also, yeah, polarized. So when I look at it without my glasses, it looks normal. And then if I look at it with my glasses, it looks like what I think it looks like on the GoPro. So that looks kind of funky, but in reality, it looks perfectly normal. Nice, crisp, grayscale LCD here. Shows us our battery percentage, our pedal assist level, and then, you know, how fast we're going in our trip. So you can cycle through the odometer here, 33, 20 miles, 0 watts being used, average speed, max speed. Now I'd probably leave it on. Oops. So I double tap the plus button and it puts it into speed mode or sports mode, whatever they call it. But basically what that does is it eliminates the throttle, so now the throttle's not going to work, and you can now pedal it to 25 miles per hour. I'm personally kind of confused about that. I don't really see the utility there, but if you want to get from 20 miles per hour class 2 to 25 just pedaling, you can put it in sports mode and then pedal past that. And you can also do it while you're riding, so it's not like you have to stop and then undo it. So if you were, you know, throttling around and you're like, oh, I want to get a little bit faster, you could just double tap it, pedal, get that speed boost, because the throttle's not going to take you to 25 anyway. And then when you want to come down and cruise on the throttle, you just double tap it again. So not terrible. I don't know if I quite understand it, but it's something to note. So as soon as you put it back onto normal mode there, then our throttle's going to work, as you can hear. So yeah, not really a bad display. It looks, like I said, I'm looking at it through the GoPro. It looks super funky, like some sort of like 70s commercial or music video, but it doesn't look like that. I don't know if that's the ND filter I got on my GoPro or not, but yeah, it looks normal. So like the pictures, it looks like the pictures. We've got these BMX bars here, which are pretty dope. Nice, long, I don't know if these are probably like 9-inch risers here, and they have to be, right? So I've got the saddle right about there. Now, you might notice just real quick while we're down here that the saddle is kind of touching the back side of the bag. This is just where it is for me. If you want to get underneath that, all you have to do is loosen the seat. You can bring it down a little bit and then it slides back in there. So you can get it all the way to the lowest spot with the basket. I also think you can mount the basket further back. I kind of chose to do it a little bit further. So this isn't a con, this is just how I have it set up. And like I said, you can adjust it so you can get the, you know, there's probably like an inch gap, half-inch gap in there where you couldn't have the saddle for, you know, that perfect pedal geometry. But like I said, if you scoot it back all the way, that wouldn't even be an issue. And I think my saddle is also, no, I guess it is kind of in the middle-ish there. Anyway, so with the handlebars, the reason I was saying 9 inches, you pretty much need 9 inches, is because that's a good pedal geometry for me, and my hands are still coming down a little bit. So if these were, even higher, or if the stem kind of just, came up a little bit more, that might make it a little bit more of a comfortable ride. But if I, say, brought the handlebars back a little bit, which you could do, that might make it a little bit more ergonomic for me to hold on to it as well. So a lot of these things that I mentioned are pretty much just the way I had it set up. There's different adjustments that you can make. It's just the way I wanted to set it up. These are some of the things that I've noticed. On this side, we've got our bell, which is pretty nice. For one of these, just sort of like cheaper plastic bells. Does have a nice ring to it, and yeah, it's got a nice little springiness here, which I think is just plastic, which is interesting. Then we've got our shifter down here. This is a trigger shifter, or it's a thumb and pointer finger shifter, so you actually shift pushing forward this way and then pulling back this side. A little bit less convenient, especially because I got the brakes here. So I got the brakes, and then I have to, like, if I was trying to brake and shift, which I don't know if I would ever do that, but there's just not a whole lot of room in here to kind of get my fingers in and shift it. So if this was more like a SRAM or a different type of Shimano setup where both of the triggers were like here and here, and they were both thumb presses, that might be a little bit more convenient here. Now, speaking of the brakes, these are Wesun hydraulic brakes. They do have motor cutoff inhibitors in them, so that's a huge plus for us. And the only things that I've noticed so far, because honestly, like, they stop the bike really well. I can skid, and you guys know I love skidding, so I've been skidding. The only thing about these brakes is that it feels like you have to put a little bit more hand pressure, and it's not like it's like out of fluid where it kind of comes back here. Like, this is it's a good stopping. Like, this is kind of fully pressed, but it feels like you gotta kind of really press down that last little bit, which is interesting. With some of the other hydraulic brakes, I don't know if I've noticed that quite as much, but they work really well. Like I said, they're stopping the bike exactly how you'd want hydraulic brakes to stop it. We've got bigger rotors than they probably needed to put on here, so we've got 180 millimeter. Like I said, probably could have gotten away with 160, but it is cool that they went with the larger 180s. And so, yeah, like I said, brakes work really well. Now, with these particular tires, not a lot of off-road tread, but they are a really cool street tire. These are the Kenda Cursor 20 inches, so they're 20 by 3 inch tires, which, as you guys know, 3 inches is pretty much my favorite size tire for the most part. You get all the benefits of kind of having a bigger, wider tire, but it has a lot more of a traditional bike feel than an actual 4-inch tire does. So I like these ones. These are pretty cool. I think it's my first time actually using the Cursors, if I'm remembering every bike I've ever reviewed correctly, and I like them. They're cool. They're great street tires. They handle off-road a little bit. We did a little bit of stuff, riding around in the dirt and some grass and things like that. Didn't feel 100% confident with them. When you get into some loose dirt and stuff like that, they'll tend to sway a little bit, but there's really nothing here to grab onto that. And then let's head back over here and let's chat about our drivetrain. So we've got our Pro Wheel cranks here, and these bigger, thicker pedals, they're pretty light, so I don't know exactly what they're made out of, but they are a little bit wider and have a couple of little grip points here that you can see, which is kind of cool for me. I like them a little bit wider, a little bit grippier, and so yeah, I'm kind of a fan of these ones. Not too shabby. We've got our KMC rust-proof chain here, and then we've got our Shimano Altus derailleur here in the back. Now, this one doesn't have a derailleur guard, and it doesn't look like there's a spot to put it on there, or maybe I don't know. I have to double check that. But this one doesn't have a derailleur guard on it, so that's a fact. I don't have to double check that one. And that might be something that would be interesting to have out here. Kind of protect it from curbs and things like that, because this is going to stay in the urban jungle, right? It's going to be on the concrete for the most part. So maybe something that could be added here, but not a huge deal. Like I said, functions well, so not really an issue with that. We've got our other full fender in the back. Now this one, it feels thicker than the front one. I'm not sure if that's true or not, or it's just mounted in a couple more points, but it feels a little bit sturdier in the back. And again, plenty of coverage on these tires. You can see that they're sticking out plain enough. So I mean, like I said, I've got in the dirt, and there's not really anything back here. So they're doing a pretty good job. And then up here we have got our bag and our rack. Now the rack itself is pretty big. I'll get those exact dimensions for you on screen here, but it feels like there's quite a lot of space, especially compared with, like, you know, a lot of the smaller rear baskets. There's reflector attachment points here, and the bag itself, I guess I decided to make it as hard as possible for me to get into this thing one-handed. The bag itself has tons of room in here. I mean, look at that. Like you guys are in the bag right now. You know what I'm saying? So tons of room in here, which is pretty dope. A little pocket up here at the top. Again, you pop this back over here and zip it on up. So you can fit quite a few things in there if you guys are, you know, delivering food and you don't want to put it into you know, some sort of insulated bag or anything like that. Or if you had a smaller insulated bag, you could just drop it down to this, which would be pretty sweet. And then up in the front, the other extra basket we got is the front basket. Now I'm kind of partial to the wood look. Now we did have a wood panel on the back as well before we installed the rear basket, so this matched what was back there. So if you just do front basket on this one, and then it would match the back. It's the same sort of bamboo-ish looking wood here. And this one, you know, mounts right here. Pretty easy to mount. I did have to take this board out in order to get those screws at the bottom just because of the way that the angle is. Not a huge deal, just something to note if you're trying to install it, get a little frustrated. Try removing these four screws here, and then yeah, it mounts pretty easy because you can get a better angle with your Allen wrench there. Here we have got our cup holder. Now I'm not 100% sure if you'd be riding with something in there, for two reasons. One, there's not that much travel in the front suspension. There's some, but it's not like it's gonna really kind of absorb, you know, big bumps or anything like that. And if you're sitting back here, you take my perspective, or here, I'm not gonna let go of my hand, reach all the way down here and grab it. So I don't know if it was designed to be used, you know, while you're riding, but you know, when you're stopped, this is pretty nice. I wish I would have brought a water bottle because it's a little bit hot. I could have demonstrated it. But let's say you get to where you're going, you're at the park, you're at the beach, whatever it is, pulled up on the boardwalk. It'd be super easy for you to set your, you know, water bottle, Gatorade, Prime, whatever it is. You pop it down in here, and then boom, you got a little portable table. That's how I guess I envision myself seeing people use this a little bit more. If you don't want to use it, you just undo these screws right here, boom, and then you've just got a regular front basket. Not super deep, so this is only about, I don't know, 3 inches or so, maybe a little bit under 3 inches deep. So if you are going to put stuff that's a little bit bigger in here, or at least a little bit taller, you definitely want to get some bungees, and obviously there's tons of nice good spots to have that chomped on there. So chomped's not the word I was looking for. Bungeed? Yeah, have it bungeed on there. So yeah, so other than that, it's not super deep, and not sure exactly when you're gonna use a cup holder unless you're stopped. I like it. I think it looks pretty good. One of the things with a lot of these front baskets that we get is that they don't leave us enough cable here, and so then you almost can't even turn the bike fully on most bikes. But on the Runabout 2 here, there's plenty of cabling. I can turn this bike all the way around. Doesn't really get caught up in here at all, so it's not like it's getting caught and has a chance to get caught on something. The way they designed that aspect of it means that you can really actually utilize the front basket, which a lot of people don't. Or they get a front basket and they get on their bike, and then they don't have enough cabling to turn the bike fully, so like, well, for safety reasons I can't even use it, so it just sits in their garage and gathers dust. It's nice that we can use it on here, right? Plenty of cabling, plenty of space. That part works really well. Now we've talked about the motor, we talked about the battery, we talked about the brakes, some of the extras and stuff. I guess we didn't really chat about the front fork suspension, but let's go ahead and do that now. So the front fork suspension here, and actually I'm gonna move us back into the light a little bit. No reason for me to be nice and cool. Excuse me, I'm trying to talk about these suspension forks here. So the suspension forks here, there's no adjustments. So up at the top we usually have our lockout and preload adjustments on the tops here of the stanchions, but we do not. So no adjustments here, but having, you know, front fork suspension period makes this a more pleasant bike to ride. You know, you add front suspension on anything, it's going to be a little bit more fun to ride. Yeah, not, like I said, not a whole lot of travel. Maybe 80 millimeters. No, maybe 40, 50. Somewhere in between 50 and 80 millimeters, I'd say. I haven't measured it, and I'm not sure what they say online, but just based on my experience, it doesn't feel like a full 80, but somewhere in between there. Maybe 60. Let's call it 60. We'll just say it's 60. All right, just between you and me, we'll call it 60. So that's the front fork suspension. No rear suspension. This is a hardtail, and we don't have any other suspension to talk about in the back. Some things that I would look to upgrade on this bike if I was going to be keeping it long term, for me, would be the first thing I would do is probably add a seat post suspension. So you get a Connect or a Suntour or something like that. You could get a nice little seat post suspension. That's going to give you a little bit more of a cushy ride. So that paired with the little bit of travel you get in the front, that would make it a little bit more cush, you know what I'm saying? So that would be something I would upgrade. And other than that, not really a whole lot, I think, to upgrade. You know, this is something that we'd be making our ride a little bit more cush, as I had mentioned. Maybe for me, I'd swap out the grips. Like I said, wasn't a super huge fan of these ones, but my hands are a little bit sore moving a bunch of stuff over into an e-bike store recently, so my hands are a little tender. So maybe that's what it was. But I think even then, I just didn't like the way that these kind of catch in the meaty part of your palm here. Grips are a super easy thing to switch out. So if you wanted to do that, $15-20, get yourself some decent grips with some locking points on here. You can swap these out, you know, create an accent color, swap out the pedals. There's lots of really cool, easy ways that you can make a bike your own. And so grips for me, usually the first thing I swap out. But other than that, so we say we add seat post suspension, different grips, but that's just for me. I think the bike is pretty solid, especially for the price point, sitting around that $1,600. This is something that if you spent the money on it, you'd be like, okay, this seems like a fair exchange of value. Now there's similar bikes. If you go up a couple $100 more, you could find similar bikes that have this frame style to it. But you know, people's budget, that's a real thing. So if $1,600 is kind of like, hey, I need to get what I can get for that point, I don't think you'd be disappointed with this, especially if you want to go and upgrade to the seat post suspension. But then we just blew your budget, so maybe save up for that. But add that, maybe swap out the grips, test these ones out, see if you like them. But if not, you can always get new grips. But yeah, other than that, I don't really know what else I have to say about it. I think I have enjoyed it. I know I've enjoyed it, riding it around. Definitely is not something that you would want to take off-road primarily, just because, we've got 3-inch tires instead of 4-inch tires. They are street tires, not outdoor tires, and not a whole lot of travel up front, and it's a hardtail. So when you're riding along some of the dirt and stuff that you normally see us do, this, it's a bumpy ride, right? And so when you're doing the same thing on a full suspension bike that's fat tire, you don't feel anything. Not to say that adding the seat post suspension would kind of fix your worries. It would make it a little bit less jarring for you, but the whole bike itself, I think, would still vibrate and move a little bit more because we don't have so much travel in front to just absorb a lot of that. Also, the tires could be a little bit lower. I think I've got them closer to the max, so there's probably I believe there's a 20 pound difference in PSI, so you could let a little bit of air out. That would also help cushion the ride a little bit. I'm riding them a little bit tight because I really just kind of planned on riding on the concrete for the most part. So yeah, guys, those are my thoughts on the Runabout Point 2 from Revy Bikes. If you guys have any questions, let me know down in the comments. Otherwise, let's gear up for a ride test. All right, guys, we are here for the ride test on the Runabout 2. Go ahead and let's put in pedal assist level 1. Let's see what we can do here. Now I'm going to use the throttle. I'll actually just put in pedal assist level 0. Throttle doesn't work. It's a nice safety thing here. This looks like it would be a horn, but it's actually going to be our front light. So in case you're wondering why I'm not using the horn, we don't have one. So put it in pedal assist level 1. Go ahead and use the throttle. We'll kick up this way. Pretty zippy out the gate with the with the throttle here, which is kind of nice. And the throttle is going to take us to 20 miles per hour, even in pedal assist level 1, which for us is a bonus. Sometimes the pedal assist levels will dictate how fast the throttle goes, but we'd prefer to have full access to the power. You know, that way if you're, you know, cruising around in a lower level assist level and then, you know, you see a situation where you need to punch it or something like that, you can do that or you get to that top speed of 20 miles per hour with the throttle here. So if I let that go and I go start pedaling, it's not really going to pick up yet because we're going faster than that. Put in pedal to level 3, 4. There we go, now getting some juice. Do a little brake and a turn here. Now these brakes here, they're Wisun, but they still work pretty good. I feel like you got to put a little bit more pressure on them than maybe some of the Tektros, but they do a really good job of stopping the bike, and I can demonstrate that here at the end. Go ahead and hit the brakes. Easily skid the tires on this one. Now we're taking it off-road, kind of right at the gate. This is not necessarily designed for off-roading or more of a tumultuous terrain here, but that's what we're doing with it. And we do have that front fork suspension. Not any adjustments or anything we can do on there, so you're kind of stuck with whatever the ride feels like. Which for most of the time, you know, if we're really just kind of cruising around on the concrete, not really a huge deal. Now, as far as pedal geometry goes, I feel like it's a pretty decent pedal geometry for me. I probably would want the seat to be up just a little bit higher. But at that point, I feel like my hands would be down a little bit. So I'm probably splitting the difference here on having sort of where I would want my arms ideally to be and where I would want my legs ideally to be. And because it has, you know, pedal assist to help out, it's not really that huge of a deal if you don't have the right pedal geometry. Here's they're trying to pass on the road. We get time to take a little break and chat about some of the stuff that we probably have already covered in up to this point in the review. Now, one of the things I like is a really big back rack here, and you get this, you know, this fairly big duffel-like bag that can go in the back. You carry quite a few things here, which would be pretty cool for a lot of people. And then up in the front, you know, we've got our front rack, which you guys have probably seen most of the time we're riding, with a nice little cup holder here. Now, there's probably some situations where that wouldn't be ideal. You know, you could bounce out or something like that. But if you were going slow and just cruising around some of those very smooth, you know, you could probably use that. Or maybe get some little bungee cord or something like that to keep your bottles in there. And that was our front and rear rack brake, brought to you by Revy Bikes, sponsored by Revy Bikes, in partnership with Revy Bikes. Sometimes you gotta do that, guys. You know, instead of worrying about cutting around people, and you just say, hey, it's a good time to talk about something. A little skidding? Okay, all right, I see you. I see you. And now we're back to its main environment, which is gonna be the smooth surfaces here. Now let's go ahead and do a speed test. Put in a pedal assist level 5. And that's going to take us to 20 miles per hour as it sits right now. I believe it can be unlocked, so we could get speeds of 25 miles per hour out of it. But as it comes in Class 2 mode, looks like it's only going to take us to 20 miles per hour with pedal assist or throttle. Well, usually use something like that. You can jump in there in the advanced settings and pretty easy to switch. Now, as far as handling goes, this is a pretty compact bike. Like, it's a compact cargo bike and really has some really decent handling to it. Cut corners pretty well. I feel like I've got a pretty good control of where I want the bike to go, and yeah, all in all, has a really nice feel to it. Now go ahead and get going a little bit faster, do a braking test right up here. Trying to skid the tires just a little bit. It's probably like 16, 17 feet. We're going 20 miles per hour here. So not too shabby. And of course we got a little bell down here. Decent sounding bell for being one of the, just sort of one of the cheap plastic bells that we see come on a lot of bikes. It sounds pretty nice. Oh, backing up. And we're cruising again. All right, so one thing we got to add in here is to get to that top speed of 25 miles per hour, all you have to do is double tap the power button here. And so now it's in normal mode. Oh, you can see this is NOR on it. So the throttle works, throttle goes up to 20, we're golden. And then if I put in pedal assist level 5, double tap this, the throttle doesn't work, but we can now pedal assist to 25 miles per hour. So I'm not 100% sure why you'd want to do that, but they've done it. And I wouldn't really say there's a ton of ghost pedaling either, but it is a pretty quick cadence to get to that top speed. So a little bit tricky getting that 25 miles per hour out of it, but then you don't get to use the throttle at all, so it deactivates the throttle, which is interesting. I don't know if there's I should have put it back because I'm a throttle guy. I don't know if there's a legal reason, or maybe there's some utility there that I'm just not aware of. But if it were me, it'd be cool to have, the sports mode you put into, technically it'd be class 3 at that point, but I'm not quite sure about deactivating the throttle. That doesn't really make sense to me. But if it makes sense to you, let me know down in the comments, guys. I just had to hop on and show off that feature because, we're learning. We're all learning stuff. So I was like, man, I was trying to jump into the settings and see if I could change it. And then, reread through what Revy Bikes had sent me on the Runabout 0.2. And it was like, oh yeah, to enter sports mode, you just double tap it. I said, oh, that's cool. And right underneath it, it said, but it deactivates the throttle. And I was like, what? It was just like that. Like I was like, what? That was exactly what I said out loud. All right, guys, that's gonna do it for our speed test mode. So let's get back to the ride test. This has a similar frame design to a couple of bikes we've tested out recently, like the Scoria from Machwheel, and then also the Ovia from Cyrush. I reviewed that one as well not too long ago. Sort of that compact, step through, thicker frame, but I believe both the Scoria and the Ovia have actual fat inch tires, so 4-inch tires. Now, if I'm being honest, 3 inches is probably my favorite 95% of the time, because I think you still get a lot of the benefits of it being a fat tire, but then you get the road feel or the ride feel of it being it feels more like a traditional bike than a straight fat tire. But yeah, 3 inches are pretty much my favorite. Now for some of these like smaller wheels, when you're talking 20-inch and kind of a compact frame, I think I might like the 4-inch tires a little bit more. And it's mainly because when you have this compact frame, none of them are really designed well for, they're not designed well for pedal geometry, right? Like you can get it there, but that wasn't really in my opinion, I don't think that's the first thing they had in mind. Is like, oh, the frame looks cool, let's kind of build it on top of this. And so those compact frames in general, I mean, you look at Super 73, Zoos, and there are exceptions to the rule, but there are a lot of them that have a really cool, compact design, but pedal geometry just kind of wasn't taken into consideration with a lot of those, which is fine because, hey, I don't like to pedal. Look at me, I'm in throttling around most of this time, mixing a couple kicks here and there, but for the most part, I like to throttle around. And so saying all that to say, I think that with those fat tires, they're a little bit more fun to kind of cruise around on throttle only, because it feels a little more like a moped, kind of has that style to it. We just bottomed the shocks out there. But guys, that is pretty much our ride test on the Runabout Point 2. Be safe, wear a helmet, right? I am. Here, I can prove it to you guys. Look at this. Heard that unclasping? Oh, look at that, he's wearing a helmet. A Retrospec. It's an off-brand 1000, guys. And yeah, so like I said, that's pretty much gonna do it for our ride test. We talked, mainly about the feel and just sort of how the ride test is. Before you watch this, timeline-wise, we're gonna go over all the specs and talk about the 52-volt system here, some of the cool attachments that you see here that come extra, like the rear rack, the bag, the front basket, and yeah, guys, I appreciate you hanging out with me, and we'll catch you on the next one.